and welcome to a special show here on News First. Sri Lanka is going through very, very tough times, and in these tough times, there are segments in society that are affected, that are more affected than other segments in society. Some claim that children are the most affected, the others claim that the poor are the most affected. There are those who say that disabled people in Sri Lanka are the most affected by this. But there is a group of people who have been suffering in Sri Lanka for a long period of time, and their sufferings have gotten worse with the situation here in the country and also contributing factors from across the world. These are none other than orphans, children who have no one to turn to, children who have been deprived of the love of their parents, love of their relatives, and who have been deprived of a place here in this country that they call our own. Well, there is a group of people, however, who have taken up this cause and who are trying to make these children a better future, who are trying to help them fit in, and who are trying to help them succeed in life. And this is the OrphanCare Trust. And we've got with us today 3 trustees of OrphanCare to discuss on what their real objectives are, what is their mission, what is their vision, and how do they plan on changing things for these children, for these orphans here in Sri Lanka. Getting to know our guest first, we've got on my immediate left Mr. K.R. Ravindran. He is the founder and CEO of PrintCare PLC, and he is also the only Sri Lankan to hold office of President of Rotary International. Thank you very much, sir, for taking time off your busy schedule and joining us on this program. We've also got with us President's Counsel Harsha Amarasekara. He is an independent director at several listed companies here in Sri Lanka. Thank you very much, President's Counsel Amarasekara, for joining us on our program. And we've also got Mr. Mohammed Azmir. He is the Managing Director and CEO of Amana Bank. Thank you very much, sir, for joining us on our program. So, at this time where many Sri Lankans are really affected by this, and by this I mean the economic crisis, of course, it's only understandable or logical to think that orphans are also seriously affected by this situation. So you've been a part of this trust, part of this project, part of this initiative to try and change their lives. Let's start off with what this project is really about, what brought about this project, what really inspired this idea to help these children who most definitely are in need. And my first question goes to President's Counsel Harsha Amarasekara. What really is the OrphanCare Trust?
Thank you, Shalan. This was an initiative that was mooted as a CSR project by Amana Bank. The team there, I think, felt the need to create a platform to address what is now called the second abandonment, to deal with an acute problem that is faced by orphans when they leave the patronage of the orphanage. So they saw the need to provide support to these orphans when they are forced to leave the protective and the shelter that they had been given after the first abandonment,
Right.
which is when they were left destitute by the parents.
Right.
And that gave rise to the formation of an independent trust, which is the OrphanCare Trust. And they formed themselves, the trust was formed, governed by independent trustees, the administration of which is under the Amana Bank,
Right.
free of charge.
Right.
And that is an initiative that was, I think, led by Azmir, who is on my left, and many of the management at Amana Bank. And I was an independent director at that time with Amana Bank and was invited to serve as a trustee. And I was proud to be associated with that initiative.
So, President's Council Amarasekar, you mentioned about this, you mentioned the word second abandonment. Usually, what one would understand as an orphan would be a child or an infant or a young child who doesn't have parents. And these children are the ones who are given care at orphanages. They're taken care of by the state. It's the responsibility of the state to take care of these children. You mentioned the word second abandonment, and I'd like to pose this question to Mr. Ravindran. What really is second abandonment? Is it really recognized as far as the concept goes? I mean, I understand what the President's Council Amarasekar has said.
So let me go back a little bit. You know, I sit sometimes or sleep in the night and think of my childhood. I think about my parents, how my father managed to put me through school, what my mother taught, etc. And then you think, my God, we take life so much for granted. Think now of a child abandoned somewhere, railway station, police station, train compartment, wherever, who's got none of these things. Now that's the first abandonment, where the child is abandoned for the first time. Child has no, there's no emotional support, there's emotional disorder, there is no support of guidance of any nature, there is risk, there's abuse. I mean, that child is in a serious problem. No wonder then that I think it was John Kennedy who said that victory has 1,000 fathers, but a defeat has an orphan. So that's the first abandonment. Now this child gets into an orphanage, creates a group of friends around it, in not the most ideal environment, but that's all the child has, and very often they will adapt, they will make the best of it. In fact, that's the only world they know. And then when they reach 18, you put them out into the field again. Now they're abandoned for the second time. All right, they go out into the wide world, they're abandoned again. I mean, it's just like a child growing up with one parent and the mother dying. Okay, first abandonment when the father died, second abandonment when the mother died. Equally, when an orphan is put out put outside the orphanage, that shelter that he had, however bad or however good it is now taken away. He may be able to cope with the world, he may not be. He may be educated, he may not be. He may have some vocational skills, he may not be. So that's the second abandonment, and that's a UN terminology. It's not something we created, that's a accepted terminology across the world.
Right. So President's Council Amarasekar also said that it was Azmir who led this along with several top management members of Amana Bank. Azmir, now when a private sector company comes up with an idea of a CSR initiative, we usually see companies either going out of their way to help the poor, to help children, to help especially families who are suffering due to the economic crisis during COVID-19. There are many projects that usually come to one's mind. OrphanCare, or the project that was described thus far, is not one of those usual ideas that a corporate or a private sector company will come up with, because it's something that we really don't think about too much. Second abandonment. Even if we're helping orphans, you'd usually think to help a child, put them through school, give them a place to stay because they're children. So how did you really come up with this idea? What was the inspiration behind helping orphans in the moment of their second abandonment?
Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. See, Amana Bank has been involved in sustainable CSR programs throughout, and our key sustainable program was focused towards children. For many years, we have been maintaining the children's ward at the Kalbola Teaching Hospital. For many years, over the years, our team found out the challenges some of the children faced with, especially the orphan children. And when it was reported to the bank, we decided to do a little more research over it. When we did the research, we really found out the magnitude of the problem, and we decided we need to do something about it. Then we decided to set up a trust, and at that time, I had also the privilege of Harsha on my right, who was in our board. I consulted him. Harsha, we have this problem. I also consulted other board members, and I told him we need to do something about it, and we need to set up something in a structured way, properly governed and compliant, so that these children can be, this issue can be addressed. The second abandonment Ravi mentioned. So what we did as a first step, we formed the trust, and then we were fortunate enough to get the endorsement of some of the eminent trustees in the country, people in the country to be trustees. And then we also spoke to Ernst & Young or the EY, invited them to be our auditors, and then we got along. At the very first meeting itself, at the formation stage itself, governance structure was fully hard-coded. We said we will only be taking children who are properly recognized by the authorities as orphans, and all our engagement will be under UN Charter number 2 without any form of discrimination for children. And whether it is the child's parents, child color, religion, caste, creed, the region where he comes from, no discrimination. And that really unexpectedly started giving progress very much. And all our staff got involved with it. And the Amana Bank, fortunately, we got the approval of our board at that time, and we managed to put the seed capital for the fund, and we are there now. And what we, at that time, when we formed the trust, at the very first meeting itself, we made a bold statement to the trustees that as a bank, we will bear up the entire administrative cost and the cost of the secretariat. Why? Because if you look at generally the NGOs, substantial part of the donation goes towards administration. But our trustees, we decided that every rupee that comes into the fund goes for the benefit of our orphans. So I think that made us very much different or unique from other trusts or the orphan care institutions in the country or globally. So we are progressing. The trust is very much there. It is operational. And we have been able to engage with the most of the orphans, large number. We will talk about it as we progress, inshallah.
Definitely, Mr. Azmir. It's definitely an uphill task, of course, to address this very specific issue that you have taken on and that now has formed itself into OrphanCare as an independent trust trying to tackle the second abandonment of orphan children. President's Council Amarasekara, how big is this issue really? I know that there are statistics available, but you've been working on this for a while. How big is this issue?
Yeah, it's huge, Shalan. In Sri Lanka, within the registered framework, there are 14,000 orphans. And I'm talking the registered framework. The world over, there are 140 million. If you were to take it and put all the orphans in a country, it'll be the 8th largest country in the world. So we are talking about a problem so significant that I think many countries don't have the resources to deal with it. So in Sri Lanka, a problem that big cannot be dealt with by a program such as ours by itself. The fund itself is in its infancy. And we need the support of every kind-hearted donor that is out there to help in whichever the way they can, either in kind or in a donation, however small, whether it be a monthly stipend, as we now have quite a bit, in order to take this forward. There are over 90 orphanages that we work with at the moment. There are many more that we need to onboard. So it's a significant problem. A significant number of orphans are out there. And like I said, it's only the registered domain. Those people who are outside of the registration, we don't have the number for.
So,
really.
President's Council Amarasekara, you've described this issue as an issue that the world can't deal with, but you as a private organization here in our little island nation has taken on this issue. Mr. Ravindran, how do you plan at OrphanCare to address this issue? What do you plan on doing? Or what are you doing right now even?
Let me add to what Harsha said, because what he said was very, very profound. It's like someone told Mother Teresa, this is only a drop in the ocean. But she said the ocean would be more by that drop if you didn't do what you did. So his appeal it's very resounding. It sort of strikes me at my heart. And there was a Greek philosopher who put down 8 levels of charity. Now, right at the top, or just before the top, was number 7, which said if you give money, if you help a cause where the final beneficiary is not known to you, that's one of the highest levels of charity. You can give money, get recognition, get a plaque in your name, that's also charity. But when you give money to an organization like this, you're not sure which child it reaches. And that is one of the highest levels of charity, and that's why what Harsha said appeals to me so much, and I hope your listeners will pay heed to this. Now, there are something like 90 orphanages. We support about 90 orphanages in this country. Am I right?
Yes,
about
yes.
90? Right.
90 orphanages out of 400.
Now, what we understand that we can't do everything for the child. We can't go and sit there and run this orphanage. We can't make sure it gets excellent food. We hope they do. Our people visit that, but that's all we can do. But what we are trying to do is put money into each child's account. And this money goes into this, you have the child's birth certificate. It's much like a minor's account, where this money is held in that child's account. When the child leaves, you tally it with the ID card, etc., and ensure this child has these funds to take out when he walks out. So he's no longer going away with nothing in his hands, perhaps like what's happening in the other orphanages.
So, President's Council Amarasekara, is this project alone? Now, this project is to help orphans at the time of their second abandonment when they come out into society, so that hopefully they will become a more productive citizen to society and not fall into the wrong side of society, which of course is what happens not only to orphans but many other people also who don't really have some ground to stand on, somewhere to seek refuge, and orphans in this equation are especially at risk. So will this program alone really address this issue?
No, certainly not, Shalan. Let me put it in context. Say our child, my daughter, my son, they come of age, 18. They haven't even finished their A-levels at that age. Are they really fit to go out there to the world? Would we just release them out there? Can they look after themselves financially? Are they financially independent? Are they emotionally independent to go out there and sort out their life? Are they morally or emotionally able to go out there and look after themselves? So, like Ravi was just mentioning, the fund is at its infancy. The kind of monies that we have now, which we are distributing quarterly, is grossly insufficient, even to give a financial base for them to start a life as they leave the orphanage. So the fund needs to grow so that we can give some support financially that is meaningful, so that they can actually enroll themselves in a vocational training program or some educational program that can give them and lead them to further employment. But it's more than that. The fund will also seek to give them partner support.
Right.
With regard to
Some
vocational mentorship.
Right.
Right, with regard to vocational training, trauma and management,
Right.
Mental well-being, and
It's an area
the
that is
care
completely disregarded in
support.
Sri Lanka.
Right. So it's the financial support is the one part. It's that whole other support base on the other. Whether and when we will be able to reach that stage where we'll be able to give that support to each one who reaches the age of 18 is a challenge. And that is something that we are working towards. So it's not an easy problem, but it's a problem that we want to grapple with, and it's a problem that we want to be able to grapple with successfully. And if only 60% of those orphans that go benefit from this, then at least we as trustees and the program can feel a sense of achievement.
Right, right.
Now, Mr. Azmir really explained how children are selected. When children are selected, there is no discrimination. They don't look into race, creed, caste, color, the area that you come from, and all of that. But Mr. Ravindran, how specifically do you identify these children, and how, more importantly, do you identify their needs?
I think Harsha dealt with this pretty thoroughly. When these kids go out, clearly, we can't just throw them on the streets. Now, our trustees are pretty well connected. Each one is a person of substance. We have our connections. The bank is well connected. And I would say that we would normally hope that we can identify some skills that they have, whether they've got vocational skills, whether they've got singing skills, whether they've got other skills which can be made use of, which can be cultivated, and try to put them in a position where we take advantage of those skills. I mean, make no mistakes. There are situations where you have orphans who have really hit the top. I mean, one of the best names I can think of is Nelson Mandela. He grew up in an orphanage. James Dean, the actor, John Lennon. These all orphans who made it because they had that little break. Someone somewhere picked them up and put them in the right path. And I think that's what our bank or Amana Bank or trust will try to do, where you try to give them that little break that they need, which could propel them to a better life.
Azmir, you said that Amana Bank initiated this trust. Now it's an independent trust being run independently. What really is Amana Bank's role now in this trust, OrphanCare?
As mentioned earlier, Amana Bank provided the initial seed capital. And also we ensure that the entire cost of funding of this independent OrphanCare trust is borne by Amana Bank.
Right.
So that every rupee goes back to the beneficiaries or the orphans. And as staff, I can tell you, larger number of staff, they have committed through their monthly salaries to set aside a portion towards these children. That is why we have been able to largely sustain this fund, and it is growing. But as Harsha and Ravi mentioned, you will appreciate that in order to do a meaningful, impactful contribution towards these children, the fund need to grow. We need to embrace them more, and we need to invite other donors to come in. Keeping that in mind, what we have done is, although we launched it as Amana Bank OrphanCare, subsequently with the endorsement of our trustees, it is completely an independent trust. We function as only the founder cost bearer. And why? Because we want all other, as much as we all have a collective responsibility as corporate citizens. We have a responsibility as citizens, so that everyone can come in, every corporate can come in, join us in the platform, so share the same recognitions and the values that Amana Bank does, so that they can portray their CSR programs in this, which I think will make a huge difference rather than trying to do it alone.
Definitely. So, President's Council, Amar Sekara, there is, of course, the need to grow this fund. How do you intend on doing it? How is it being done? How can any person who is watching this right now and who thinks this is a worthy cause, I want to be a part of it, how can they do that?
So, Shalan, essentially there are 4 ways that we've gone about it. The first and foremost is there has been some fairly significant and large donations made by kind-hearted donors. That is what gave us the seed capital.
Right.
Then we have had many people who enroll and give a monthly standing order. There are several customers of Amana Bank through the branch network who has committed to that. There are many one's friends and family who have enrolled and they are giving a monthly donation by way of a standing order. And this is immense. You know, it keeps rolling. Year on year, it keeps rolling. And it's not something that the fund has to go after.
Right.
And that is the key. You know, it can be 150 rupees, it can be 1,000 rupees, it can be 2,000 rupees, it can be 5,000 rupees, it can be 25,000 rupees. Whatever fits your pocket, you give the standing order and it comes to the fund. And the key here is what Azbir was saying. Since Amana Bank bears the full cost of the administration, every last cent that comes into the fund gets distributed to the orphans.
So you can be rest assured that
Every
the money that you
last
donated
cent.
to
Absolutely.
an orphan
They're
will go.
absolute. If you take whatever the NGO, I don't want to mention names. We all know that about 45% goes on administration.
Quite right.
Right. So internationally, and I don't want to mention names. Here, as trustees, with responsibility, we can say that not 1 cent of monies that is put into the trust goes on administration. Every last cent trickles down to the orphans. Then we have the third one, which is the impulse donations through the tills and the pay-as-you-go. And then the fourth, we have the web portals.
Right.
Where you can make the donations via your credit cards or the debit cards. Then, of course, finally, we have the corporate partnerships,
Right.
which we are hoping to grow, as Azbir said. Now, every corporate that I know of, and I'm on the board of several, as Ravi will well know, each corporate has its own CSR programs, right? And each one is significant. Each one is very well thought out, just as much as this one is. So it's more than the corporates. I think we need to also reach out to the individuals, right? Every person is a mother, every person is a father, every person is a child who has had the nurturing and the well-being and the care of parents, you know, and it's easy for every one of us to know what the plight might have been if we did not have a mother, if we did not have a father, if we did not have the care that patronage gave us. So each one of us have it in us to be able to give something by way of a standing order or a donation or something that can foster this fund, you see. So that is the basic concept.
So,
of
President's
the
Council,
collection.
Amar Sekara, how can a prospective donor contact the fund?
So basically, I think all of the details are there on our website.
Which is
OrphanCare.
OrphanCare.
OrphanCare,
The
right?
Secretariat.
The Secretariat has all the details. And it's very easy to make a standing order. This thing is there. And
The entire procedure is available online.
It's all available online.
Shalan, if I may add to what
Yes.
Harsha said, When it comes to payment, yes, you can make a direct contribution through your check, cash, credit cards, or through the website. We have enabled a payment mechanism directly from the website itself, and also through standing orders from the various banks. Just to reiterate a point, what Harsha mentioned, every rupee that is contributed to the orphan goes direct to the orphan's beneficiary. I recall, I'm not sure whether Harsha will recall, sometime back the initial days when we had an event, because it was an OrphanCare event, unexpectedly we got a discount on the event. It was a substantial amount, and Harsha called me and asked, Azmir, I heard that you got a discount on this event, and I said yes, we got it, but rightfully Amana Bank deserved not to get it. But so we have passed on that discounted amount to the OrphanCare Fund. So this is the importance.
So President's Council, Amara Sekhar, is holding you to high standards.
Right people on the board, right trustees, so that we can achieve what we want to achieve.
So President's Council, Amara Sekhar, besides the financial donations, is there any other way that a person can contribute?
Yes. So there are what we call our partners. Care partners as well as service providers.
Right.
There are other, we have partnerships in terms of financial providers, web designers, creative partners, and then of course our interactive partners who will join with us to provide vocational training, educational training, job placements,
right.
Mental well-being training. So you see, it is what we can do to an orphan as they are about to leave is so wide. Anybody and everybody can be a partner with us. Anybody and everybody, and it need not be our structured organizations. Even an individual can partner with us. It is the needs are so wide and widespread, but essentially it is on those two fronts that we have.
Mr. Azmir, you spoke about an eminent panel of trustees who are in charge of OrphanCare. Who are these trustees?
Ravi, he was the only Rotary International president, brought pride to the nation. As Shalan, you rightly recognized him. And also he was the chairman of the Rotary Foundation Trust, which manages $6 billion. That is a huge amount to be entrusted on a chairman at an international level. And also he was conferred with the Abhimani title. Next, I will talk about our chairman, Huzli Hussain. He was the chairman of the OrphanCare Trust, and if I may call so, he is the father of the Rotaract movement in Sri Lanka, which was established in 1969. Like many others who benefited from the Rotaract movement, I also had the unique privilege of benefiting from this movement as president of the Rotaract Club in Kandy, which continues to be an organization which makes impactful contribution to the society. Then of course we have Rohan Tudava, our founder chairman, founder treasurer, who unfortunately passed away untimely, and his contribution since the inception was very much committed and dedicated. His role is now being taken over by Jazri Ismail, who was the past president of the accounting technicians of Sri Lanka, and he continues to serve as the treasurer. Then Deshabandhu Tilakti Soisa, who was the HelpAge president and also HelpAge International president. Then Sharad Amalin, who was the founder, co-founder of Mass Holdings. Osman Qasim, who was the former chairman of Expolanka Holdings, which is now owned by Sagawa Holding Japan, former chairman of Amana Bank, who wholeheartedly supported us with approving the seed capital for the trust. Then Taib Akbar Ali, managing director of Akbar Brothers, who are the largest exporters of Ceylon tea in the last 25 years. And of course, Shireen Watson, lady who manages the trustee affairs very well. And of course, I need to, although you gave a brief introduction of Harsha, I also need to talk about him besides his role as a presidential counsel. He is a highly sought after name in the legal fraternity and also in the corporate world for board membership. Currently, I know that he is chairman of CIC Holdings and chairman of Sampath Bank, but I know he is also chairman and directors of many other entities. I have not been able to keep a count of that.
So we've really come to the end of our show. There is much more, of course, to speak about OrphanCare and how it's helping Sri Lanka change the future of hundreds and thousands of children who have not had the love of their parents, who now are in this big, bad world all alone. But before we leave, one final question. Mr. Ravindran, you were quite silent throughout the last few minutes of this program, so I'll direct this question to you.
With these two colleagues, I don't have to say anything at all.
Mr. Ravindran, as a member of the Board of Trustees of OrphanCare, and it's been a few years since OrphanCare began. Mr. Ravindran, true to your heart, why are you doing this?
True to my heart. You know, firstly, of course, is because someone invited you to sit on that board. And you examine the cause. And I'm not one, shall I say, one of those highly religious persons. I go on the philosophy that service to man is service to God. And when you sit on a board like this, you are truly servicing man. You're servicing the disadvantaged. And this board has got some truly eminent personalities. I must be the only guy there who is nothing there. The rest of them are all top-notch people. And we have a job of stewardship. We have a job to ensure, not just give ideas, not just guide them, not just direct them, bring our experience to bear, because each one of us serves in many of these things. So we gain that experience from others. But we have a responsibility to ensure that even if someone out there gives 10 rupees, that 10 rupees is spent correctly. We are responsible for the stewardship of that money. So I think in many ways, going and serving on a trust like this, helping to raise money, ensuring it reaches the right people is truly serving God.
Thank you very much. That's quite a statement coming out of a person who says that he is not very religious. Thank you very much, Mr. Ravindran, founder CEO of PrintCare PLC, the only Sri Lankan president of Rotary International, or to hold that post at the time, who is also a member of the Board of Trustees of OrphanCare. Thank you also to President's Counsel Harsha Amarasekara, independent director in several leading listed companies in Sri Lanka. And of course, as a President's Counsel, his reputation does precede him. Thank you very much, sir, for joining us on our program. And also, thank you very much, Mr. Mohammed Azmir, Managing Director and CEO of Amana Bank, for, of course, making known, firstly, the issue that orphans face at the moment of second abandonment to people. I'm pretty sure there are many people who are scratching their heads right now and thinking, well, this is also a huge issue that needs to be addressed. And of course, there are people taking care of the matter. There are people who have taken an initiative and who are doing something about it. And if you feel you should contribute, well, you already know how. Thank you very much for tuning in. Until we meet again, take care and God bless.